The stars of the outer rim were cold and silent. Among them drifted a dying ship, its silver hull torn, its engines weak, and its lights flickering like the last breath of a fading life. Inside that ship were the Sarathi, a once beautiful race known across the galaxy for their songs and gentle hearts. Now they were nothing more than ghosts of a forgotten people. For centuries, the Sarathi had lived under the rule of the Galactic Concord, a powerful union of ancient species that decided who was worthy of existence. The Sarathi were artists, healers, dreamers. But the Concord wanted soldiers, miners, and machines. When the Sarathi refused to join their wars, the Council declared them biologically inferior. Their worlds were taken. Their fleets were broken. Their names were erased from the Concord's records, and so the survivors ran, ship after ship, fleeing to the edge of known space. Most of them never made it. Now only one ship remained, the Dawn of Saral. Inside its main hall, the air was thin and cold. Hundreds of Sarathi huddled together. Their skin, once bright with color, had turned pale from hunger. The walls groaned under the weight of years without repairs. Children cried softly, their parents too tired to comfort them. At the center of the room stood Alarin, the last elected leader of the Sarathi. Her tall, slender figure was wrapped in a torn ceremonial robe. She stared at the flickering hologram of their navigation map, a vast spiral galaxy, most of it marked red, forbidden. "There is nowhere left," whispered one of her advisors. Alarin's golden eyes didn't blink. "There must be," she said quietly. "Somewhere in this galaxy there has to be one world that still remembers kindness." But no one answered. The galaxy had forgotten kindness long ago. Their engines had less than 3 days of power left. The food supply was nearly gone. The crew had stopped broadcasting distress signals, not because they gave up, but because every time they tried, pirates or Concord patrols responded first. When they crossed into the uncharted spiral arm, the navigation systems began to fail. The stars here were strange, young, fierce, and wild. The scanners showed no trade routes, no stations, no colonies. Just emptiness. Alarin stood before the window of the bridge, watching the endless black. Her heart felt like a stone. She had led her people for 20 years, always promising hope. But now she was not sure there was any left. One of the technicians turned to her suddenly. "High Matriarch," he said, his voice trembling. "I'm detecting something." "A transmission," Alarin frowned. "From where?" "Unknown. It's faint, but—" The technician adjusted the signal. "It's using an old Terran frequency." "Terran?" she repeated. The word was unfamiliar. Yes, a pre-FTL civilization according to old records. From a minor world near Sol. Alarin's mind raced. A primitive species? Out here, impossible. No one had heard from the Terrans in over 100 years. The Conquered had dismissed them as unstable, too violent, too emotional to survive among the stars. Still, the signal repeated, clearer this time. "This is Earth Orbital Relay 9. Unknown vessel, you are entering Terran-controlled space. Identify yourself. We offer medical assistance if required." For a moment, the entire bridge went silent. Alarin looked around at her crew, unsure if she had heard correctly. "Did they say assistance?" she whispered. The technician nodded slowly. "Yes, they're offering help." No one spoke. Some of the younger Sarathi began to cry, not from fear but disbelief. It had been so long since anyone had offered them help. Alarin hesitated only for a heartbeat, then straightened her shoulders. "Open a channel," she said. "Tell them who we are." The reply came minutes later, warm, clear, and full of emotion. "Sarathi vessel, you are welcome here. Dock at Earth Station. We'll prepare medical units and translators. You are safe." Safe. The word echoed through the ship like a miracle. Alarin leaned back in her chair, tears glimmering in her eyes. "Plot a course," she whispered. "Take us to Earth." The engines roared back to life, struggling but determined. The stars shifted as the Dawn of Saral turned toward the small blue planet that glowed like a gem in the dark. Hours later, as they neared the Sol system, the Sarathi saw something they had never imagined. Orbiting Earth was not a fortress, not a military armada, but a ring. A vast shining ring that circled the planet like a silver halo. It was filled with lights, ships, and movement. "Life, is that their home?" one of the children asked softly. Alarin smiled faintly. Perhaps part of it. As the Sarathi ship approached, dozens of Terran vessels surrounded them, sleek, practical designs with black and silver hulls. But none of them aimed weapons. Instead, they transmitted greetings in a dozen languages. When the docking clamps connected, Alaren's hands trembled. She had no idea what these humans looked like or what they truly wanted, but she stepped forward anyway, her people following close behind. The airlock opened, and a rush of warm, breathable air filled the corridor. Standing there were humans in white and blue suits carrying scanners and medical kits. Their faces showed no fear, no disgust, no arrogance, only curiosity and compassion. A tall human man stepped forward. His voice was calm and gentle. "Welcome," he said. "You've come a long way." Alaren bowed her head slightly. We did not expect kindness." The man smiled softly. "Neither did we once." Hours passed in a blur. The Sarathi were taken to medical bays, treated, fed, and given rest. Children received warm blankets and strange human toys that made them laugh for the first time in years. Alaren sat in a small observation room, sipping water while staring out the window at the earth below, blue oceans, green lands, clouds drifting peacefully. It looked alive, full of love and struggle at once. A young human officer entered the room holding a data pad. "You must be Alaren," he said. "Our records show you're the leader of your people." She nodded. "We are exiles. The galaxy banished us for being weak." The officer sat down across from her, shaking his head. "Weak? You survived all this?" He looked out the window. "I think you're stronger than most of the galaxy combined." Alaren's eyes glistened. "Why are you helping us?" "You risk angering the conquered," he smiled. "Because we remember. There was a time when we were alone, too. No one wanted us, and not the older races, not even our own kind. We learned what that feels like, so now we try to be better." His words sank deep into her heart. For the first time, she saw a reflection of her people's pain in another species' eyes. When he stood to leave, he added quietly, "Rest. Tomorrow, the Terran Council will meet with you. You'll find Earth isn't like the rest of the galaxy." Later that night, Alaren couldn't sleep. She walked through the silent halls of the human station, watching as her people rested peacefully for the first time in years. She passed by windows where humans worked side by side. Engineers, medics, scientists, all different, all determined. They didn't seem like conquerors or politicians. They looked human, imperfect, but kind. She thought of the conquered's words, and that compassion was weakness. And she realized something powerful. Maybe compassion was humanity's greatest strength. As the station orbited Earth, dawn rose over the planet below, painting the oceans in gold. The light reflected across the metal corridors, washing over the tired faces of both species. Alaren stood by the window, whispering softly to herself, "Perhaps this is where our new beginning begins." The following morning, Alaren was guided through a long corridor made of glass and steel. Beyond the transparent walls, she could see Earth, a blue and white sphere glowing like a living jewel. The sight was beautiful, almost unreal. Two human officers walked beside her, smiling politely. They didn't speak much, but their eyes showed respect. It was strange for Alaren. She had never been treated this way by another species. Most looked at her people as fragile creatures, too soft for a hard galaxy. But the humans looked at her as if she mattered. When they reached the Terran Council chamber, the doors opened silently. Inside was a round room filled with light. A few humans sat around a large table. Some wore military uniforms, others simple suits. Their faces were calm but serious. At the center of the table stood a woman with silver hair tied neatly behind her head. Her eyes were sharp, but her voice was gentle. "Welcome, Alaren of the Sarathi," she said. "I'm Chairwoman Amelia Trent of the Terran Alliance." "You're safe here." Alaren bowed slightly. "Thank you for your kindness, Chairwoman. We didn't think any world would still open its doors to us." The human smiled faintly. "Maybe that's because most of the galaxy forgot what doors are for. We still remember." Her words made some of the Sarathi standing behind Alaren exchange glances. It was rare to hear humor mixed with kindness. "Please," Amelia said, gesturing toward a seat. "Sit. Let's talk about what you've been through." For the next hour, Alaren told them everything. About the exile, the conquered's judgment, the burned colonies, and the endless running. She didn't hide her shame or sorrow. When she spoke of the children who died during the long journey, her voice broke. But she kept going. The humans listened silently. None of them interrupted. They didn't take notes or whisper to each other. They simply listened, as if her story was worth hearing. When Ellerin finished, the room stayed quiet for a long time. Finally, Chairwoman Trent leaned forward. "The Galactic Concord has always feared those who think differently," she said. "We've seen their politics. They demand obedience and call it peace." Ellerin nodded. "Yes. They destroy what they cannot control." Amelia looked around the table, then back at Ellerin. "We won't turn you away. The Terran Alliance accepts your people as refugees and with full protection under our charter." Ellerin's eyes widened. "You mean, you'll defend us? Even against the Conquered?" The chairwoman smiled sadly. "We've faced worse odds before." After the meeting, Ellerin stood in a quiet observation deck overlooking the curve of Earth. Her mind was full of emotion, disbelief, relief, fear. Her advisor, Terrell, approached from behind. "Can we trust them?" he asked softly. Ellerin looked at the humans working in the hangar below, loading supplies, repairing their ship, talking and laughing even after long shifts. She could feel something genuine in them. "They are not like the others," she said finally. "Their kindness feels real." Terrell hesitated. "And if the Conquered finds out?" Ellerin's gaze didn't waver. "Then humanity will be tested. And so will we." Days turned into weeks. The Sarathi were given a temporary home on Luna Base, the massive colony built on the moon's surface. There they began to heal. Human doctors treated their wounds, engineers repaired their ship, and teachers helped Sarathi children learn Terran language. At first, the Sarathi were shy. They had lived in fear for so long that trust came slowly, but the humans never rushed them. They offered help, but never forced it. A small boy named Keo, one of the youngest Sarathi, once wandered into a human cafeteria. He stood in line, unsure what to do. The cook, and a big man with a loud laugh, handed him a warm piece of bread. "On the house, little one," the man said. "Welcome to Earth's kitchen." Keo took a bite and smiled for the first time in months. Later, when his mother found him and tried to apologize for the trouble, the cook just waved. "Trouble?" he said. "Kid's got good manners, better than half the Marines here." Stories like that spread quickly among the Sarathi. Every day more of them started talking, smiling, even laughing. The fear slowly began to fade. One evening, Ellerin was invited to tour the Earth's surface. From orbit, the planet had looked peaceful, but up close it was alive. Oceans roaring, cities glowing, people everywhere. As she walked through a park filled with humans and Sarathi children playing together, she turned to the officer escorting her. It was the same young man she had met before, Lieutenant Rian. "They're not afraid of us," Ellerin said softly, watching a Sarathi girl teach a human boy how to whistle. Rian smiled. "Why would they be? We're all weird-looking to someone." Ellerin laughed quietly, a sound she hadn't made in years. "Your people are different," he shrugged. "We learned to care the hard way. After our own wars, we decided no one should feel unwanted again. Not on our watch." Ellerin looked at him curiously. "You speak as if you understand exile." Ryan nodded slowly. "In a way we do. Once the galaxy ignored us. Said humans were too violent, too emotional. They banned us from the Concord centuries ago. So we built our own path, and alone." She looked thoughtful. "And now you help others like us." "That's what family does," Ryan said simply. "But peace never stays quiet for long." 2 weeks later, a coded message arrived at the Terran Council, intercepted from deep space. It was from the Conquered. "Return the exiles immediately. Your protection of the Sarathi violates galactic law. Failure to comply will result in military action." The council room fell silent as the message played. The voice was cold and mechanical, without emotion. Chairwoman Trent looked around the room. "They're bluffing," one general said. Another officer shook his head. "No, the Conquered doesn't bluff." Ryan, standing near the corner, clenched his fists. "We can't hand them over. You've seen what the Conquered does to outcasts." Ellerin, sitting quietly beside the chairwoman, felt a deep ache in her chest. She couldn't let humans die for her people. "If returning us will save your world," she said softly, "then do it. The Sarathi have lived as exiles before. We can live that way again." Amelia turned sharply toward her. "No," she said firmly. "We don't abandon those who seek refuge." That's not who we are. Her tone left no room for argument. The decision was made. The Sarathi would stay. But everyone in that room knew what it meant. The Concord would come. Preparations began immediately. Human engineers started upgrading defense platforms around Mars and Luna. Sarathi scientists offered their energy field technology, something humans had never used before. Together they began building a new kind of shield, something both alien and human. Illyrin worked side by side with Terran engineers. Though her hands trembled from exhaustion, she refused to rest. One night, Rian found her asleep over a pile of blueprints. He placed a blanket over her and whispered, "You've done enough for today." Illyrin didn't open her eyes, but she smiled faintly. "We've all done enough for today, and yet not enough for tomorrow." A month later, Luna Base glowed with new energy shields. The Sarathi children were learning English. Human children were learning Sarathi art. Small steps of unity bloomed quietly in the shadow of a coming storm. But beyond the solar rim, deep in the void, the conquered fleet began to move. Hundreds of ships, metallic and merciless, turned their eyes toward Earth. Their leader, a cold-eyed admiral, gave a simple order: teach the Terrans what happens when they defy the Concord. On Earth, the skies remained peaceful for now. Illyrin stood once again on the observation deck, watching the sunrise over the curve of the planet. Ryan joined her, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said. "Yes," she whispered, "but I fear it won't stay peaceful for long." He handed her one of the cups. "Then we'll make sure it's worth defending." Illyrin looked at the warm drink, unsure what to do with it. "You humans, you face danger with smiles." "Why?" Ryan chuckled softly. "Because fear never built anything worth keeping. And hope. Hope always starts with a smile." Illyrin stared out into the horizon, feeling both fear and admiration. The humans were strange, fragile in body, reckless in spirit, but stronger in heart than any race she had ever met. As the stars began to fade behind the morning light, she whispered, "Maybe the galaxy was wrong about you." The peace that had filled the Sol system began to fade like smoke in the wind. Every day, reports arrived from the outer colonies, small ships disappearing, cargo freighters found burned and drifting, communication relays going silent. The Terran Council called them accidents, but everyone knew the truth. The Concord had come. They didn't attack openly at first. Instead, they moved like ghosts, sending drones, mercenaries, and saboteurs to test humanity's strength. It was a quiet war, a whispering war fought in the shadows of space. Illyrin watched the growing tension with heavy eyes. From the windows of Luna Base, she could see Terran warships forming patrol lines across the moon's orbit. What once felt like a sanctuary now felt like a fortress. She stood beside Lieutenant Ryan, who had just returned from a patrol. His armor was scratched and his face was tired, but his spirit burned bright. "They've tested our borders 6 times this week," he said, adjusting his gloves. "Drones mostly. Fast, quiet, no markings. But we know who built them." "The Concord," Illyrin said softly. Ryan nodded. "Yes, they want to see if we'll break her." She looked out at the endless blackness of space. "They always begin this way. First whispers, then storms." He turned toward her, his voice low. "Then we'll be ready when the storm comes." On Mars, the Sarathi engineers worked side by side with human scientists. Together, they built the first prototype of the Saral Shield, a hybrid defense system using Sarathi energy fields powered by Terran fusion cores. It was unlike anything the galaxy had seen, simple, strong, and full of human stubbornness. The chief engineer, an old Terran named Dr. Imani Rao, watched the shimmering test field rise over the red sands of Mars. "Beautiful," she whispered. "It breathes like a living thing." Illyrin stood beside her, impressed. "It's your technology that made it possible." Dr. Rao shook her head. "No, Illyrin. It's your people's courage that gave us the reason." The Sarathi refugees, once afraid to touch even a tool, now worked with fierce energy. They repaired ships, taught humans how to use energy weaving, and painted banners that read, "Unity is strength." For the first time in generations, they weren't running. They were building, but the Conquered didn't stop. Their spies infiltrated human outposts, spreading lies. They whispered that the Sarathi were manipulating the humans, that they were parasites draining resources, that they would betray Earth when the real war began. Some humans started to believe it. Protests broke out on smaller colonies. "Earth first!" they shouted. "No more alien refugees." Ilaren watched the footage in silence, her heart sinking. When Ryan entered the room, she turned to him with pain in her eyes. "Even here, hatred finds a voice," Ryan sighed. "Not everyone trusts what they don't understand. But most of us do. Don't lose hope because of a few angry faces." She looked at him uncertain. "Do you believe they'll stand with us when the conquered comes?" He smiled grimly. "We're humans. We fight with each other more than anyone else. But when the real threat arrives, we stand as one." Weeks later, the first open attack came. A conquered cruiser disguised as a freighter entered Saturn's orbit and launched a hidden payload. Dozens of black drones that swarmed the Terran defense grid. Within minutes, communication with Titan Colony was lost. The Terran Navy responded instantly. Battleships jumped from Mars and Earth, intercepting the drones. The fight was brutal and fast. When the smoke cleared, Titan's atmosphere was on fire. Thousands were dead. The Council broadcast a message across the stars. "To those who strike at us in the dark, humanity will not kneel." The Whispering War was no longer silent. In the days that followed, humanity began to prepare for total conflict. Every shipyard burned with light. Every colony joined in production. Even the smallest settlements sent supplies to the fleet. The Sarathi, too, prepared in their own way. They built temples on Mars where they sang old songs, not of sorrow this time, but of strength. The melodies echoed through the domes, calming both Sarathi and humans alike. During one evening, Ryan visited Ilaren in the temple. She was kneeling, her eyes closed, humming softly. The sound was haunting, beautiful, and sad. "What song is that?" he asked quietly. Ilaren opened her eyes. "It's called the Song of Returning. It was written for those who find a home after endless wandering." Rian sat beside her. "Seems fitting," she smiled faintly. "Maybe one day this home will not have to fight for us." Ryan's eyes hardened. "If it comes to war, we'll fight for you anyway. That's what family does." But not everyone in the Terran government agreed. Some officers feared that sheltering the Sarathi would bring destruction to Earth. A few even suggested handing them over to avoid full-scale war. In a secret meeting, one admiral slammed his fist on the table. "We can't protect them forever. The Conquered's fleet outnumbers us 20-1. Chairwoman Amelia Trent leaned forward, her expression like steel. "If we surrender them, we become the very monsters we swore to fight against. Humanity's strength isn't in numbers when it's in our hearts." Her words spread across the fleet, whispered like a prayer. "We don't abandon friends." Even soldiers who had doubted before now stood taller, repeating those words like a vow. A month later, a Sarathi scout ship near Neptune discovered something terrifying. A massive conquered fleet forming beyond the system's edge. Hundreds of warships, each armed with planet-cracking cannons. Ilaren watched the holographic display with dread. "They've come," Ryan clenched his jaw. "And we're ready." Across the Sol system, alarms echoed. Fleets mobilized. Civilians were moved underground. The Sarathi volunteered to help in any way possible. They worked as engineers, medics, and signal officers. Some even trained in defense teams, learning from human soldiers. One Sarathi pilot, Nira, stood before her new squadron, a mix of humans and aliens. "The Conquered calls us weak," she said. "Let's show them how wrong they are." The soldiers cheered. As the Conquered fleet approached, the Terran Alliance broadcast a single message to the galaxy. "The Sarathi were cast out by your cruelty. We took them in. If you come for them, you come for all of humanity. We will not stand down." The message spread across every network, every colony. Some distant races watched in awe. Others in fear. The humans, the so-called primitives, were challenging the might of the galaxy. Before the first shots were fired, Ilaren stood on the bridge of a Terran battleship, staring into the starry darkness. She could see faint glimmers of movement, the Concord Armada approaching like a storm of light. Ryan stood beside her, fastening his helmet. "If you ever wondered what humans look like when they fight for something they love," he said with a half-smile, "you're about to find out." Ilaren's voice was quiet but firm. "And if they wondered what the Sarathi look like when they stop running, they'll see that too." As the fleets drew closer, the comm channels filled with chatter, orders, prayers, and goodbyes. Chairwoman Trent's voice came over the command network. "To all Terran ships on them, hold the line. For Earth, For Mars, for the Sarathi. The soldiers responded as one. For all of us. The silence that followed was heavier than sound itself. Then, the first shot. A Concorde cruiser fired a beam of white fire across space, slicing through a Terran scout ship. The battle had begun. The stars erupted in chaos. Missiles and plasma bolts streaked like shooting stars. Sarathi shield generators shimmered across Terran hulls, glowing bright as they absorbed hit after hit. Human railguns thundered, tearing through enemy cruisers. Ilaren gripped the rail, her heart racing. She had never seen such fury, such courage. Humans fought like storms, wild, unbroken, alive. When one ship went down, another moved to cover it. When a Sarathi pilot's engine failed, a human fighter dragged them home through the flames. It wasn't a battle of soldiers. It was a battle of family. Hours later, both fleets drifted in exhaustion. The first wave was over, and humanity was still standing. But the cost was high. Mars' defense fleet lost a third of its ships. Hundreds of pilots were gone. And yet, morale was unbroken. In the command room, Rian leaned against a console, bleeding from a cut on his cheek. "They'll be back," he said. Ilaren nodded. "Yes, but now the galaxy knows something it's been trying to forget." He frowned. "What's that?" She smiled weakly. "That humanity doesn't run." Across the galaxy, countless worlds watched the battle footage broadcasted by Terran networks. The sight of humans and Sarathi fighting side by side against impossible odds. On distant colonies under Concorde rule, whispers began to spread. If the humans can stand, maybe we can too. The whispering war had started as fear. Now it was turning into hope. The Sol system had never felt so tense. Even the calm blue of Earth's ocean seemed shadowed by fear. Every colony, every ship, every city prepared for the war that had finally arrived. Ilaren stood on the observation deck of Mars Command Station, her hands pressed against the cold glass. Beyond the window, the conquered fleet stretched across the void like a black river, hundreds of warships moving with deadly precision. Lieutenant Ryan joined her, his helmet tucked under his arm. "They've come to teach us obedience," he said quietly. "But they'll learn what happens when you threaten a home that fights for its own." Ilaren's golden eyes followed the movement of the enemy ships. "They won't stop until we're ashes," she said. Rian shook his head. "Then we'll make sure they burn first." On the surface of Mars, engineers worked frantically. Terran and Sarathi crews moved side by side, preparing massive energy cannons, shield generators, and orbital defense drones. Every strike the Conquered had made in the previous skirmishes had taught them something. Weakness, patterns, and how to counter the enemy. Sarathi children, once afraid to leave their quarters, now watched humans load weapons with fascination. "They are strong," whispered one boy to his sister. "Even their hands are strong." Ilaren smiled faintly, remembering her own people before exile, gentle, afraid, dreaming of art and songs. Now they were becoming warriors, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. The first attack came at dawn. A Concorde cruiser broke from the fleet and descended into Mars orbit. Its weapons fired without warning, cutting through the atmosphere and setting sections of the base ablaze. Fire and smoke billowed into the thin Martian sky. Ilaren shouted orders across the command deck. "Activate the Soral shield. All energy cannons focus on the cruiser." Terran and Sarathi engineers worked in perfect rhythm. Blue and gold shields shimmered into existence around Mars, absorbing the first blast. Rian climbed into a fighter with a Sarathi pilot, Nira, in the co-pilot seat. "Let's show them why exiles are dangerous," he said. Nira nodded. "For our people." They shot into the sky, weaving through beams of fire, dodging missiles that could tear a battleship apart. Nira's hands moved with precision, controlling Sarathi energy boosters while Ryan fired Terran railguns. Together they became a blur of motion, striking with the speed of both species combined. Meanwhile, on Earth, Chairwoman Amelia Trent addressed the planetary command. "The Conquered wants to break our spirit. They will not succeed. Every citizen, every soldier, every refugee must fight in their way, not just with weapons, but with unity." Across the globe, humans and Sarathi alike mobilized. Civilians manned defensive turrets, engineers repaired drones mid-flight, and children sang songs of courage taught by Sarathi elders. For the first time, Ilaren realized humanity's greatest strength wasn't technology. It was their heart, their refusal to give up, their capacity to care for each other and those who are different. The battle escalated. Conquered ships fired energy waves that could melt mountains. Terran battleships returned fire with combined Sarathi energy shields, creating glowing bursts of light in the void. The space above Mars and Earth became a sky of fire, a battlefield of light and shadow. Ilaren coordinated with engineers, sending critical instructions to keep shields active. Nira and Rian relayed enemy positions, weaving their fighters through the chaos to disable Concord attack drones. One massive Concord cruiser broke through the Mars shield and targeted a civilian colony. The alarms blared across the planet. Ilaren froze for a moment, panic flashing across her mind. Thousands of lives were at stake. Then she remembered Rian's words, "Fight for what you love." She pressed the override on the shield matrix. Energy surged from human reactors into Sarathi conduits glowing like a second sun. The shield expanded, forming a protective dome around the colony, absorbing the destructive beam. The ground shook, metal bent, but the civilians were safe. Amid the chaos, small acts of bravery turned the tide. A young human technician risked his life to reroute power to a failing cannon, allowing it to fire and destroy a Concord attack frigate. Sarathi pilots, who had once avoided combat, flew into dangerous zones to rescue damaged human fighters. Nira herself dragged 2 injured Terran pilots out of burning wreckage before their engines failed completely. Ilaren watched from the command deck, her chest tight. "These are my people," she whispered. "And these humans, they fight for us like family." Rian appeared beside her, blood streaked on his cheek. "They're more than family," he said. "They're humanity." Hours passed like years. Mars and Earth were battered, but the Concord fleet faltered. They had expected to crush a primitive planet easily, but they found strategy, courage, and unexpected unity. Every human ship that fell seemed to be replaced by 2 more, every Sarathi sacrifice inspiring the rest. The Concord admiral, watching from his flagship, grew furious. He sent a massive assault, his strongest cruisers aimed directly at Earth. Chairwoman Trent's voice rang across every comm channel. "All ships, focus your fire. Protect Earth at all cost. Protect Mars, protect the Sarathi. Humanity does not kneel." The Terran and Sarathi forces moved as one. Cannons fired in unison, energy shields shimmered, and fighters danced between beams of death. The sky above Earth and Mars burned brighter than any sunset, a fiery testament to unity and courage. During the peak of battle, a Terran capital ship was critically hit. Hundreds of crew were trapped. Nira and Rian flew through a storm of debris and fire to reach it. Inside, the terrified human crew clung to each other. "We're doomed!" one shouted. "Not while we're here," Rian yelled. Using a combination of Sarathi energy beams and Terran grappling hooks, they pulled every crew member to safety. When the last person jumped into the fighter, Nira looked at the burning ship behind them and whispered, "They thought we were weak. They were wrong." On Mars, Ilaren oversaw the final push. She coordinated the defense drones, directing energy pulses that cut through conquered lines. The Sarathi engineers had created something unprecedented, a hybrid war system, human and alien, powered by compassion as much as technology. She sent a single message across the fleet. "We fight for our home, for each other. Together we are unbroken." Her words were broadcast to every Terran and Sarathi soldier. They cheered, firing with renewed vigor. After what felt like days, the conquered fleet began to retreat. Their ships limped away, battered and defeated, unable to pierce the combined defenses. The sky was still burning with the remnants of the battle, fires reflecting on the red sands of Mars and the oceans of Earth. But humanity had stood, and the Sarathi had survived for the first time, not as fugitives, but as allies. Later in the quiet of the command deck, Ilaren sat beside Rian. They watched the stars flicker, some burned out by the Concord's assault, others shining brighter in defiance. "We did it," Rian said softly. Ilaren shook her head. "We survived the first storm, but the galaxy is watching now. They will not forget," Rian smiled faintly. "Then we'll remind them what it means to fight for something you love. Together." Ilaren turned to him, hope filling her heart for the first time in decades. "Perhaps this is the beginning," she whispered. Rian placed a hand on her shoulder. "No, it's more than a beginning. It's a warning. Across the stars, whispers began to spread. A primitive species defended exiles and won. Perhaps the galaxy has underestimated humans. On Mars, Sarathi children ran through the ruins of their old refugee camp, laughing as humans taught them games. On Earth, survivors looked up at the sky, scarred but proud. The Sol system was quiet now. Not the calm of peace, but the calm that comes after a storm. Smoke still drifted from Mars' surface, and some cities on Earth were damaged. Yet the people, human and Sarathi alike, stood tall. Elerin walked through the halls of Luna Base, watching her people move among Terran soldiers. The refugees had become workers, engineers, medics, even pilots. Their hands, once trembling with fear, now moved with confidence and purpose. She paused by a window, gazing at the stars. Beyond the light of the Sol system, the Concord fleet had retreated, nursing their wounds. But Elerin knew the galaxy would not forget what had happened here. Ryan approached, his face grim but proud. "They'll be back," he said softly. Elerin nodded. "Yes, but now, the galaxy knows something they didn't before." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "And what is that?" Elerin smiled faintly. "That humans fight for what is right, that we do not kneel, that kindness is not weakness." The Terran Council held an emergency session. Chairwoman Amelia Trent addressed the room with calm authority. "The conquered will not invade Earth again soon. Their pride is wounded. But we cannot be passive. We must show the galaxy what it means to protect those who cannot protect themselves." A general spoke up. "Our fleets are damaged. Our colonies need repair. How do we strike fear into a fleet that outnumbers us?" Amelia's eyes were sharp. "We don't strike with fear. We strike with example. We show them that even in the face of power, courage and unity are stronger than weapons. Humanity and the Sarathi, together, are the new measure of strength." Elerin listened to these words, feeling warmth she had not known for decades. She had survived exile, hatred, and fear. Now she saw hope, built from both human resolve and Sarathi resilience. Across Mars, Sarathi and Terran engineers worked to repair warships, rebuild cities, and care for the wounded. The Sarathi shared old knowledge, energy weaving, advanced shields, healing methods, while humans shared their technology, strategy, and determination. One afternoon, Elerin watched a group of Sarathi children painting murals on the walls of a new Martian hospital. The murals depicted stars, ships, and planets, not in sorrow but in hope. A young boy tugged her robe. "Hi, Matriarch, look!" She knelt beside him. "What did you draw?" "A future," he said simply, "where we are safe, where everyone can sing and play." Elerin's eyes glistened. For the first time, she felt that future was real, not just a dream. But even in victory, tension remained. The Concord had been humiliated. Rumors spread across the galaxy. Primitive humans had defended exiles and won. Some species whispered in admiration. Others whispered in fear. In the halls of the Concord, debates raged. Some leaders argued for full retaliation, to crush humanity before its influence spread. Others feared that attacking a united Terran-Sarathi front would be impossible without total loss. The galaxy had begun to shift. The story of Earth and Mars spread like wildfire. A small species defying the rules of the mighty, protecting the weak. Elerin and Ryan traveled together aboard a Terran ship, visiting colonies and outposts that had supported the war effort. Everywhere they went, they were met with cheers. Humans and Sarathi alike had created a bond that could not be broken. On one station, an old human officer shook his head in wonder. "I've fought all over the galaxy," he said. "Never have I seen species work together like this. You've taught us something we didn't know we could do." Elerin smiled. "Perhaps it is not that we taught, but that we remembered. The galaxy often forgets kindness, but we remember." Ryan laughed softly. "And we fight for it." The conquered fleet never returned. Their leaders were shaken. Ships that had once ruled the outer rim now fled from whispers of Earth's strength. Across distant colonies, oppressed species began to reach out to the Terran Alliance. Some came in secret asking for refuge. Others openly declared support, inspired by the example of humans and Sarathi standing together. Elerin realized that humanity had done something far greater than surviving a war. They had shifted the balance of morality across the galaxy. Back on Mars, Elerin walked among her people in the new settlement built near the equator. Children played with Terran youths, Families shared meals. Artists painted murals of stars and ships. She paused near a young Sarathi girl teaching a human child a song from their world. The melody was haunting, beautiful, and full of life. Ilaren's voice was soft as she spoke to Ryan beside her. They will never forget this. We will never forget this. The galaxy has learned that exile is not the end, and that kindness is stronger than fear. Ryan nodded. And humanity has found its place among the stars, not by domination but by heart. Chairwoman Amelia Trent stood on Earth's broadcast station, addressing the galaxy. Her voice was calm, firm, and clear. The Terran Alliance has defended refugees and stood against the mighty conquered. Let this be a lesson. Kindness is strength. Compassion is power. Together we are unbreakable. Across millions of worlds, species listened, some with awe, others with fear, but all with respect. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy paused to rethink its rules. Ilaren stood on the plains of Mars watching twin suns rise. She held a small Sarathi child's hand, feeling the warmth of life, hope, and safety. Ryan stood beside her, looking out at the horizon. The galaxy will challenge us again, he said quietly. Ilaren squeezed the child's hand, then turned to Ryan. And when it does, humanity will be ready. The Sarathi will be ready. Together we are no longer weak. We are unbroken. The suns rose higher, bathing the red sands in golden light. Ships in orbit gleamed like jewels, repaired and ready. The Sarathi settlement hummed with life. Earth had sent aid, building schools, hospitals, and homes. The bond between humans and Sarathi was no longer fragile. It was unshakable. Across the stars, whispers spread. A primitive species has taught the galaxy what courage truly means. They fought for exiles. They protected the weak. They reminded everyone what it is to care. And somewhere deep in the conquered, the leaders began to understand. The galaxy had changed forever. Ilaren looked at Ryan, then back at the child holding her hand. She whispered, "We were banished by the galaxy, but we found a home among humans." Ryan smiled, his eyes reflecting the twin suns. "No," he said softly. "You were always meant to have a home. Humanity just helped you see it." And as the sun rose fully, the Sol system stood, battered, scarred, but stronger than ever. Humanity had protected the Sarathi, defended its own honor, and in doing so, had become the moral compass of the galaxy. The conquered would remember. The stars would remember. And the galaxy would never again forget what it meant to fight for kindness, courage, and hope. For the first time, humanity was not just a species among many. It was a beacon, lighting the path for those who had none. The dawn of a new concord had begun, not of fear or dominance, but of unity, compassion, and the unstoppable strength of humanity.